So excited because this week we're going to talk about habitats. For science, we're going to talk about habitats. Say habitats. Habitats. It's kind of a funny word. What are habitats? A habitat is a place where a plant or an animal lives. So think about where you live. We live in a what? We live in our homes. That's our habitat. Look at this squirrel. Where's he living? Yeah, this squirrel's habitat is in a tree. It lives in a tree. So habitat is kind of a fancy word for home. And just like we have a place at home to live, so do plants and animals. All right, all animals need these four things to survive, and that includes us. They need to have food, they need to have water to drink, shelter or protection, and they need air to breathe. Okay? Here's an example of food. We see a chameleon. He sees some food in the desert. So to us, that's really gross. To us, it might be gross, but to the chameleon, he enjoys this beetle. Water. We see here an ant on a flower, and he's drinking water. Animals and plants also need shelter. So if we look closely, you can see a little owl. He made a home in the cactus. That's his shelter, or where he stays to be safe. Oops, what am I saying, friends? Animals all need air. They need air. So here we have a picture of seals. They're swimming, but then they need to come back up to the surface above the ice to be able to breathe some air. And then they'll go back down to try to hunt and find some fish to eat. Into what are the different types of habitats? Okay, all animals require different amounts of space for their habitats. At this picture, a habitat can be as big as a forest. So some animals consider the forest their home, and a forest is a lot of space. Some animals don't need that much space, and they'll be just fine in smaller places, just like this pond. Just like this frog, all the space he needs is in a pond. But if you look at the elephant, an elephant needs more space, so their habitats are generally much larger. So they roam freely over large area. Here's another example of an animal that only needs a small amount of space. So you can see that the spider, he only needs a small amount of space. It doesn't need a whole entire forest to live. All right, let's talk about what the different types of habitats there are. Talk about our forests. Say forests. Forests. If you notice, there's a lot of trees in forests. If you notice, there's a lot of grass, a lot of moss, this green stuff that's growing out of the rocks. This is called moss. These are what makes up a forest. These are some of the animals you see in forests. We see little deer, eagles, some foxes, squirrels. All these animals live in a forest. Say rainforest. A rainforest is another type of habitat. Now this one's different, a little bit different than a forest. Let me tell you why. A tropical rainforest, they're forests, but they have much taller trees and they're pretty warm inside, and a lot of rain comes by in tropical rainforests. The largest forest in the world is the Amazon rainforest in South America. Some rainforest animals, excuse me. We see parrots, we see a sloth up here. There's a tiger in rainforests and some monkeys. So we have more unique animals in rainforests. Alright, Say savanna. Savanna is another type of habitat. If you notice, there's not as many trees. There's not a whole lot of plants growing either. Okay, let's see what kind of animals live in savannas. We have zebras up here. We have cheetahs living in savannas. Oh, here's our elephant friends again. And we have giraffes. All these animals live in what habitat? The savanna. Everybody say tundra. A tundra is a large area of land where there isn't a whole lot of trees at all, and the ground is usually frozen. So you would say it's usually pretty cold in a tundra. Animals that live in the tundra are the Arctic fox, so you can kind of see him, he's camouflaged a little bit. We see penguins, polar bears, and even elk. These animals all live in the tundra, where they like it nice and cold. The ocean. Say ocean. The ocean is another habitat. This ocean, all oceans, they contain a whole lot of animals. So many different types of animals is that we haven't even discovered some of the animals that live in the ocean. That's how deep and vast oceans are. You know about are whales. We know that sharks live in oceans, we have octopus, we have colorful fish that live in oceans, even jellyfish that live in oceans. And all these animals, well, except for the whale, all these animals breathe underwater. A whale, actually like us, breathes air. So even though they swim for a long time underwater, they need to come back up to the surface and breathe. Check out this habitat. It's called a desert. Say desert. A desert. If you look at the picture here, you notice that there's not a whole lot of plants growing. Deserts can get really hot, and there's not as many animals either because it's so hot. Sometimes, friends, that it gets really windy in deserts, and this sand gets picked up and gets thrown around. It can be really unsafe and get in your eyes as well. That live in a desert. We have snakes. We have these scorpions, these friends down here, and we have camels. All these animals have adapted to the hot, hot deserts. All right, friends. We've talked about so many different types of habitats. We talked about what animals need to survive, which is food and water, shelter, and air. We talked about so many different types of habitats. We talked about oceans, the forest, the rainforest. We talked about savanna, and we talked about deserts. I think I'm missing one. Savannas, if I haven't said that already. Alright friends, now it's your turn. I want you to take a look at my work I did down here. I did it digitally this time. If you look down here, I drew a picture of an elephant in their habitat, which is the savanna. Okay, now what I want you to do is I want you to draw me a picture of an animal that you saw in our slideshow and draw it in the habitat that you saw it in. Okay, so choose an animal that you saw in the slideshow and draw it in the habitat that you saw it in. Okay, and then when you're done drawing, I want you to write a sentence to match your picture. So my sentence down here says, an elephant lives in the savanna. And I drew my elephant.